This is Damon Cart with NLP Gym. How to use NLP on. Stay tuned. You guessed it, women. How to use NLP on women. Before I get into this, if you haven't already, please click subscribe to this YouTube channel so you can get these videos on a regular basis. And if you like this video, click like right down here. I know this is a very controversial topic, but if you know me, you know that I don't shy away from controversial topics. So we're going to get into this. Now, you might be asking yourself, well, isn't this immoral? Isn't this unethical? Should Damon be talking about this? I heard about this with NLP, and NLP has this reputation. Well, that's exactly why I want to talk about this. If you search how to use NLP on YouTube, it will pre-populate how to use NLP on women. It's the top subject, or it's a top autofill. So what does that mean? That means that more people are searching that than anything else. Those auto suggestions are based on how many searches and previous searches for that topic. I was actually looking for topics to do videos on. I started to type in how to use, and then it pre-populated, and I thought, well, there's no way I'm going to do a video about that. And then I stepped back and said, well, that's exactly why I should do a video about that. The ethical, moral, we'll get into that, I assure you. What I'm going to show you can be used in almost any situation. It is the basis for so much of how NLP works. You can use it in sales, and if you're a woman watching this and you're waiting to see this creepy guy talk about all the horrible things that are horrible ways that I can hypnotize a woman to do whatever I want, then you're not going to quite get that here. However, what I will teach, or what I'm about to teach, is something you can use with men on dates, and I hope you do. The first frame, the frame in which everything happens, that whether that's change, transformation, or it's dating, falling in love, the first thing is rapport. Marker doesn't work very well. I've written many articles on rapport. I've done a few videos on rapport, how to get it. I'm not going to go into it too much here. You can see the other videos or read the other blogs that I've written. Basically, rapport is the matching and mirroring and the calibration, the sensory acuity, so that you can build a feeling of trust and a feeling of familiarity. When you have that with someone, naturally you want to do more with that person. You're drawn to that person. You want to be around that person. You trust them. You feel familiar with that person. Rapport is essential in any sort of change work. It's also essential in sales and in dating and in falling in love. You start in rapport. NLP teaches you how to gain rapport rapidly. So we're talking like, I can build strong rapport with someone in about 2 minutes. These are all natural processes that we do, that we engage in, mostly unconscious. When you become conscious of them, then you can sort of make them happen at will. That's what makes NLP so powerful. It's making so many of these unconscious processes conscious, and then you have choice about when you want to use them. If you're going on a date, you can match and mirror, you can match their voice tone, you can match the rhythm of their breathing, and quickly you will move into a state of rapport where you're sort of moving in sync with each other. The conversation usually flows easily, and you feel free around that person to speak your mind, speak your feelings. The next frame is outcome. Notice the frames fit within each other. It's not like we go from one frame to the next. You want to stay in a state of rapport the whole time. And then your outcome comes next. What do you want out of this situation? Now, if you're a man and you're watching this, you might say, well, I want to have sex. Okay, fine, that's natural. I'm not going to tell you not to. It's a natural desire. But you don't have to just go with that. A lot of men sort of unconsciously, again, just go for that outcome. Well, maybe you want a different outcome. Maybe you want just a second date because you want to get to know her better. Just remember, it doesn't have to be sex. It could be ultimately a relationship, though I would hold off on having that as an outcome for a woman you don't know yet. You might want to take a little while to get to know her before having sex or having a relationship. This is sorting this out. This outcome part is the first thing. Before you go on the date, maybe if it's a first date, you might already have an outcome in mind. That's fine. I usually have sort of a loose outcome. I just say, okay, I want to connect with someone. Whether she is someone I might date or not, I want to make a connection. And then she might just be someone I want to be friends with, which has happened. I've gone out on dates and I liked the woman a lot. It just wasn't, the sparks didn't fly. So we became friends, and that's not wasted. I mean, that's a great date if you make a connection. You might want to have a loose outcome going into the date, start the date, get into rapport as quickly as possible, and then ask yourself, what do I want out of this now? Now I know a little bit more about her. What do I want? That's where your outcome comes in. And you want something clear and tangible, like, I want a second date. You want to choose a specific outcome. The next frame is ecology. Now, the importance of ecology, this is what's so wonderful about NLP. Morals and ethics are important. However, morals and ethics are rather static, and life is not static. Life is ever-changing, it's moving, it's flowing, and sometimes trying to apply a static rule or a static law or moral or ethic to something can be quite challenging. Sometimes it doesn't always fit. Ecology is not like that. Ecology is living and breathing with the situation. So this is how it works. Imagine that you're a system. If I'm a system and I'm seeking balance, systems seek balance naturally. That's how they maintain themselves. That's how they stay systems. So let's imagine that I am a system and I'm on a date and I ask myself, okay, got the rapport. What is my outcome? And is my outcome ecological? What if my outcome is to get another date? Then I ask myself, okay, as a system, does this, introducing this outcome, if I achieve my outcome, does it throw me off balance? Is this person not good for me? If this person, I start to sense that they might be emotionally unstable, maybe I don't, maybe it's not ecological. Maybe introducing my achievement or my outcome of the second date is actually something that's not good for me. That's checking ecology. Also, is there any inner resistance coming from me? Is there some reason why I don't want to proceed with the outcome? That's all ecology. Now, it doesn't end with just me. And I'm going to check in with her. I'm going to think of her as a system. Does my outcome throw her off balance? Does my outcome give her value? Or does it take something away from her? This too is part of ecology. When you're considering all this stuff, when you're considering ecology, if this is a good idea for you, if this is a good idea for her, this will come through your communication. And if she is an aware and awake human being, she will pick up on this. This will also make you seem very stable and likely very attractive, and she will probably appreciate this quite a bit. It's also, you're not being desperate or needy, you're actually checking in with yourself. Do I want to do this? Is this good for me? Is this good for her? And you're just checking in. It's not that you're confused, it's just that you're checking in. So you're not like, I need to have a date with you. I need to have another date with you. I need you. Think of the interaction you're having with her as a system itself. So the two of you become a system interrelating with each other. Is your outcome good for the system as a whole? Or is this going to mess something up for you? Is this going to mess something up for her? You're always going to find downsides to any outcome. No outcome, well, I don't want to say no, but most outcomes aren't 100% positive and great. There's always something in there that's not perfect, something in there that may be a downside. That's fine. You just want to check in and make sure that this is worth it for both of you, that the positive outweighs the negative. It won't always be so clean as one thing is 100% positive and there's no negatives. Probably not going to happen. But if it's worth it, if it's 55% positive and 45% negative, you just want to make sure you understand what you're getting yourself into. So checking ecology takes care of the moral and ethical issues. It does it sort of in real time. Last but not least is technique or pattern. Now, if you're a guy and you're watching this, this is probably what you came for. You're thinking, I'm going to give you some sort of technique or pattern. All you have to do is just implement this technique and she's yours. Much of what the whole NLP seduction thing is language patterns. And this is very seductive in itself for men who believe that, or they're sold on this idea that you just memorize some sort of language pattern, and then you sit back and you just speak it loud enough for the woman to hear it. You don't even have to be that close to her, and suddenly she's a marshmallow in your hand. That can happen. If you practice language patterns enough, you can probably get to that point. However, if you skip these levels, if you skip these frames, it's probably not going to work. And that's what happens so often in novice NLP practitioners, or people who are just trying to implement a language pattern to seduce a woman. They skip these frames, and one or two things happen. Either the technique they're using does not work, or they put themselves in serious trouble because they didn't check ecology. The woman could have been emotionally unstable. There could have been so many other factors that were not considered, but this makes you more conscientious. If you go to implement the technique and it doesn't work, it's probably because you fell out of rapport. If at any time you get resistance or you're not being able to get to the next level, you probably need to back up and go back through the levels again. So if your technique doesn't work, go back to rapport, go back to your outcome, go back to ecology. You may need to revise what you're doing. You may get new information along the way and you realize this isn't something that's good for me, or it's not something that's good for her, and then you realize it's time to back off. So what technique am I going to give you? I'm going to give you an extremely powerful technique. I'm going to give you a technique that does not require you to memorize anything. I'm going to give you a technique that is in many cases more powerful than any language pattern and is extremely effective. Again, this can be used not just for dating, and that is touch. Yes, it's that simple. Touch. So many people are out of touch with touch. And I've talked to women so many times about this, and one of the complaints that keeps coming up is when they're on a date and they like a guy, he doesn't touch her enough. We're told from a very young age to keep our hands to ourselves, that touch is improper, it's inappropriate, so don't do it, it's invasive, and sometimes that is true. Virginia Satir, one of the greatest family therapists of all time, believed in touch, and if you watch her work, there's plenty of videos out there of her working with people. She's touching them all the time. She's not touching them inappropriately, but she's touching because she knows how powerful touch is, and she often commented how powerful touch is. They also did a study with waiters and waitresses. They had one group who was told not to touch the people at the tables that they were waiting on, their clients or their customers, and then they told another group to touch every person you wait on between the elbow and the wrist. Needless to say, the waiters and waitresses who touched the arm of their customers made something like double or triple the tips. Not surprising. When you touch someone, it brings in a whole new sensory paradigm. It brings in new sensory information that cannot be spoken. Now, if you touch and she pulls away or she jumps, you're obviously not in rapport. So you need to go back to rapport. Now you want to start with simple touching. You don't want to just come right in and touch in inappropriate places, especially if you're in public and she's not ready for it. That's not what I'm suggesting here. You want to start with like touches on the hand and on the knee. You want to find out if she's comfortable with you, if she's comfortable with your touch. And then you can move on from there. Instead of me trying to explain it all, how to do it right, let me get some help. I have my friend Lulu here to help me demonstrate what I'm talking about when touching. So the kind of touch that I'm talking about is not
No.
It's not like, and it's not reserved like, okay, I saw this guy on a video tell me I need to touch, so is this working? You know, it can't be like that. It's more like conversational. And so what do you think about that?
So if you're wearing a watch, that's a nice watch.
Yes. So you can touch on the hand, that's always very safe. And you're also calling attention to her. Well, you know, what do you think about that? And so this is a very non-invasive way to touch, but it lets her know that you're not afraid to touch. So if I say, well, what do you think about it? Well, it probably wouldn't be that extreme, but just like a sudden like jump, that means you need to go back to rapport, because she's obviously not feeling very comfortable with you, so you need to go back and establish more rapport. So you can start here and just touching the hand. It's always a safe place. You can.
Or if she gets like really tense all of a sudden.
Yes, if she gets tense, and this is where your calibration skills come in. So if you touch and she kind of goes rigid, okay, back off, go back, establish rapport, and then you might need to change your outcome too, because if your outcome is something that she is definitely not wanting, then you need to step back and maybe change it to something smaller, a baby step rather than a leap. Now, once you touch the hand, you can also touch the knee, and then also here's a safe place. The more you get here, this is a lot of times a little more intimate, so you wouldn't want to start there. Here, and then if she's comfortable with all that, then you can go to here, and then you can get a little more flirty and playful and do things like, oh, are you wearing earrings? But you want to build this up first. You want to make sure she's very comfortable with your presence, very comfortable with your touch, and then you can, this is a very sensuous area, so you want to be careful about jumping to this too fast. You may scare her away. This type of touching communicates what words cannot communicate. You don't have to memorize anything to touch. And most of the time, women want more touch. If she likes you, if you're in rapport, she likely wants you to touch her. This is a form of language and communication. Touching hands, touching knee, touching here. And then you can gradually go from there. Do you agree?
Yeah, how about the length of touch? For example, like a bump. What do you think of that?
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I think some guys, if they're really nervous, they might be going like this, or what do you think about that? Or, yeah, and that's not the kind that you want. I like to push the boundaries a little bit, so I might even do that. I might put my hand on her hand and say, what do you think about that? And then leave it there just to see how long she's comfortable with that. So we're actually communicating.
Aggressive.
You think that's aggressive? This is actually a form of communication. So I'm putting my hand here. She's well aware of it. And I would just hold it here and just see. And most of it, at some point a woman probably will pull her hand away. But that's information that I now have that I didn't have before. Again, if women do this with men when they're on a date, believe me, you're going to get his attention just by touching his hand or touching here or touching here. He will get a sense that you like him, and he will probably start to feel the same way if he wasn't already liking you. You don't want to do this, like, you don't, she's not your bro, so you don't want to, like,
But I mean, I do feel like a tap on the shoulder could be more of a vague thing. Like, I would be wondering, oh, is this guy like treating me like his friend, or is it more romantic? I would say, like, if it's longer, more tender touch, then it would be sending more of a romantic signal, and if it's more, like that, then I'd be like, oh, okay, maybe I'm in the friend zone.
Or you're like a little sis. Okay, so if you're a coach or a therapist, you might be thinking, well, there's no way I would do this. I think it's totally appropriate as a coach or a therapist, if you're close enough to your client, to touch on the hand, or to do like this and just check in with the person. Are you okay? Now, your outcome is very different than if you're on a date, but I think that's quite appropriate. Or to put your hand here when you're giving support to someone. Now, in sales, this is another tricky one. For a man to a man, it might be a little difficult to touch because they might be thinking other things. But in sales, if you could just do a light touch on the hand just to get their attention, or with a man, if I was selling them something and I was close enough, I wouldn't reach over and do something like that, because that might look aggressive. But what I might do is I might say, well, what do you think about that? Or just a light touch on the shoulder. This is very friendly. It's very appropriate. And for some reason, that sensation, that feeling, that bringing the kinesthetic into it, just heightens the whole process. And it's, if you're touching right and it's not aggressive, and it's not like creepy, and you're not looking at them creepy, it's going to make them trust you more, and it's going to speed up the process of getting to your outcome much faster.
In the sales example, you could also, like, if you reached a minor agreement but not the final sales, you can also high-five them.
Yeah, high fives.
Yeah.
The only problem with handshakes is that they're so customary, that we tend to shake anyone's hand and not think anything of it. But it would stand out if you touched the person's shoulder or touched them on the back. What do you think about that? We've gotten away from touching because some people do touch at inappropriate times, inappropriate places, and when people don't want them
with the wrong energy.
The wrong energy.
Yes.
And so we've gotten to this place where it's like, just don't touch. But
the North American culture is relatively very low on touching. Even they did study between friends, people just don't touch each other. Where you look at some other cultures, you see friends talking to each other and they have a lot of the body contact and stuff like that.
Yes.
Which, yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Check out my website, nlp-gym.com. Follow me on Facebook for real-time updates on talks that I'm giving, workshops that I'm doing, and also online trainings that I'm launching. Like I mentioned before, make sure you subscribe right down here so that you can get these videos on a regular basis. And if you like this video, please click like right down here. I'll see you next time. Take care.